What if I told you that the pizza you ate last night, the stress you felt at work today, or even the hug you gave your child could actually change the way your genes work? Not in 100 years, not in the next generation, but right now, in this very moment. Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you're new here, we make complex science simple, fun, and actually useful for your everyday life. Today, we're diving into one of the most revolutionary discoveries in modern biology, epigenetics. Before we jump in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at your daily habits the same way again. In the next minutes, you'll discover how your genes are like a massive library, and your epigenome is the librarian deciding which books get read. The shocking ways your breakfast, your workout, and even your thoughts are literally editing your genetic expression. And the real kicker? How your experiences might be passed down to your children and grandchildren. So, let's start with the basics, but I promise this isn't your boring high school biology class. Think of it this way. Your genome is like the hardware of a computer, and your epigenome, that's the software that decides how that hardware actually functions. Your genome is the complete set of DNA instructions you inherited from your parents, about 3 billion base pairs, 20,000 to 25,000 genes, all packed into nearly every cell in your body. It's the blueprint, the instruction manual for building you. Here's the thing though, if everyone has roughly the same genes, why are we all so different? Why doesn't everyone with the tall gene grow to be 6'5"? Why do identical twins who share 100% of their DNA often develop different health conditions? This is where epigenetics comes in. The word epigenetics literally means above genetics. It's all the chemical modifications and molecular mechanisms that sit on top of your DNA and control which genes get turned on or off. Imagine your DNA is a massive cookbook with thousands of recipes. Your epigenome is like a team of chefs putting sticky notes on certain recipes, saying, "Make this one," or "Skip this one." The cookbook hasn't changed, but which recipes get made can change dramatically based on what these chefs decide. Here's a crucial term: gene expression. This just means whether a gene is actively being read and used to make proteins. A gene can be expressed, turned on, active, making proteins, silenced, turned off, inactive, not making proteins. And here's the mind-blowing part. Your lifestyle, your environment, your experiences, they can flip these switches. Okay, so how exactly does this genetic switch flipping work? There are 3 main mechanisms, and I'm going to explain each one in a way that actually makes sense. Stick with me here. This is where it gets really cool. Mechanism number 1, DNA methylation. First up, DNA methylation. Think of this as literally putting a lock on specific genes. What happens, tiny chemical groups called methyl groups, made of 1 carbon and 3 hydrogen atoms, attach directly to your DNA. When a methyl group lands on a gene, it's like hanging a "Do Not Disturb" sign on a hotel room door. The cellular machinery that reads DNA and makes proteins sees that sign and says, "Okay, we'll leave this one alone." Real example. Let's say you have a gene that produces inflammation proteins. If that gene gets methylated, locked, your body produces less inflammation. This is actually what happens when you eat foods rich in folate and B vitamins. You're providing the raw materials for methylation. Mechanism number 2, histone modification. This one's even cooler. Your DNA doesn't just float around loosely in your cells, it's wrapped around proteins called histones, kind of like thread wrapped around spools. Depending on how tightly or loosely the DNA is wrapped around these histone proteins, genes become more or less accessible. Imagine trying to read a book that's tightly sealed with rubber bands versus one that's sitting open on a table. That's the difference. Chemical modifications can be added to these histones, like acetyl groups, which loosen the wrapping, or methyl groups again, which can tighten it. Your cells use this mechanism to quickly respond to changes in your environment. Real example, exercise triggers histone modifications that make it easier for your cells to access genes involved in energy metabolism and muscle building. This is part of why regular exercise makes it easier to stay fit over time. You're literally making your fitness genes more accessible. Mechanism number 3, non-coding RNA. Finally, we have non-coding RNA. This is the newest and most mysterious player in the epigenetics game. What happens, your DNA codes for more than just proteins. It also produces these special RNA molecules that don't become proteins themselves. Instead, they regulate other genes. Think of them as managers or coordinators. These RNA molecules can bind to DNA or other RNA and control whether genes get expressed. Some of them, called microRNAs, can simultaneously regulate hundreds of different genes. Real example, certain microRNAs are affected by stress. Chronic stress can alter the levels of specific microRNAs that control mood-related genes and inflammation genes. This is one reason why stress doesn't just make you feel bad, it can actually change your genetic expression and affect your physical health. So, those are your 3 main mechanisms: DNA methylation, locking genes, histone modification, making genes more or less accessible, and non-coding RNA, managing gene expression. Together, they form this incredibly sophisticated system that allows your body to respond to your environment without changing the actual DNA sequence. Now, here's where this gets personal, because all of these mechanisms we just talked about, they're being influenced by your daily choices right now. Let's talk about the lifestyle factors that are actively rewriting your genetic expression. Factor number 1, diet and nutrition. You literally are what you eat, but maybe not in the way you thought. Certain nutrients directly provide the building blocks for epigenetic modifications. Folate, found in leafy greens, legumes, and citrus, provides methyl groups for DNA methylation. Sulforaphane in broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower influences histone modifications and activates detoxification genes. Green tea compounds called EGCG can inhibit enzymes that add methyl groups, potentially reactivating silenced tumor suppressor genes. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish affect the expression of inflammation-related genes. The Agouti mouse study is one of the most famous epigenetics experiments. Researchers took genetically identical mice with a gene that makes them yellow, obese, and prone to diabetes and cancer. They fed pregnant mice a diet rich in methyl donors, folate, B12, choline. And the result? Their offspring, despite having the exact same genes, were brown, lean, and healthy. Same genes, different expression, different outcome. Mind-blowing, right? Factor number 2, exercise and physical activity. Exercise is like a full system update for your epigenome. Within minutes of starting exercise, your muscle cells start changing their epigenetic marks. Genes related to energy metabolism, muscle building, and inflammation control get switched on. These changes can persist for hours or even days after your workout. Regular exercise creates lasting epigenetic changes that make it easier to build and maintain muscle, improve insulin sensitivity and blood sugar control, reduce chronic inflammation, enhance brain plasticity, and protect against cognitive decline. One study found that just 20 minutes of exercise triggered epigenetic changes in fat cells that improved their metabolism. Another found that 6 months of regular exercise changed the methylation patterns of genes involved in type 2 diabetes risk. Factor number 3, stress and mental state. This is where it gets really deep. Your thoughts and emotions aren't just in your head, they're making measurable changes in your genetic expression. Chronic stress creates epigenetic changes that increase inflammation throughout your body, suppress immune function, accelerate cellular aging, literally shortening your telomeres, increase risk for depression and anxiety. But here's the amazing part. Positive interventions work too. Studies on meditation and mindfulness have shown just 8 weeks of mindfulness meditation changed the expression of inflammation-related genes.
Yoga practitioners show different methylation patterns in genes related to stress response and immune function. Cognitive behavioral therapy for depression creates epigenetic changes in genes related to neuroplasticity. Sleep isn't just rest, it's when your body does critical epigenetic housekeeping. During sleep, your body resets epigenetic marks related to your circadian rhythm, clears out toxic proteins in your brain, consolidates memories through epigenetic mechanisms, and regulates genes involved in appetite and metabolism. Sleep deprivation causes rapid epigenetic changes that increase inflammation, impair immune function, and even alter the expression of genes involved in DNA repair. One study found that just 1 week of sleeping 6 hours per night instead of 8 changed the expression of over 700 genes. What you're exposed to in your environment can also affect your epigenome. Air pollution has been shown to create epigenetic changes linked to respiratory and cardiovascular disease. Certain chemicals in plastics, like BPA, can disrupt normal epigenetic patterns. Even social environment matters. Studies on social isolation show distinct epigenetic signatures. The good news? Many of these changes can be reversed. Your epigenome is responsive. It can heal with better choices. Okay, everything we've talked about so far is already pretty amazing, but now we're going to discuss something that challenges everything we thought we knew about inheritance and evolution. Ready? What if the experiences of your parents, grandparents, or even great-grandparents could affect your genes? What is transgenerational epigenetic inheritance? This is the idea that epigenetic marks, those chemical modifications we talked about, can sometimes be passed from one generation to the next, not through DNA sequence changes, but through the epigenetic information itself. Now, let me be clear, this is still a developing area of research, and scientists are actively debating how much of this actually happens in humans and how significant it is. But the evidence we do have is absolutely fascinating. The Dutch hunger winter study. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from a tragic period in history. During World War II, in the winter of 1944-1945, the Netherlands experienced a severe famine. Women who were pregnant during this time gave birth to babies who decades later showed higher rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease, even though they themselves never experienced famine. But here's where it gets really interesting. The grandchildren of these famine survivors also showed effects. Despite never experiencing food scarcity themselves, they had altered metabolism and increased health risks. Researchers found that people exposed to the famine as fetuses had different DNA methylation patterns in genes related to metabolism and growth, patterns that persisted throughout their lives and may have been passed to their children.
Some of the most profound research is emerging around trauma. Studies have found children of Holocaust survivors show different stress hormone regulation and increased rates of PTSD, potentially linked to epigenetic changes. Descendants of people who experienced trauma from slavery show altered stress responses. Animal studies clearly demonstrate that stress experienced by parents can affect the stress response and behavior of offspring through epigenetic mechanisms. One remarkable study trained mice to fear the smell of cherry blossoms by pairing the smell with a mild shock. Their offspring, who never experienced the shock, also showed fear responses to that same smell. Their grandchildren did too. The researchers found epigenetic changes in genes related to odor detection that were passed down. The positive side, resilience can be inherited too. Here's the hopeful part of all this. If negative experiences can create epigenetic marks that pass to the next generation, then positive experiences can too. Studies show enriched environments, lots of learning, social interaction, and positive stress in parents lead to improved learning and stress resilience in offspring. Exercise during pregnancy can pass beneficial epigenetic modifications to children. Good nutrition and low stress during pregnancy creates positive epigenetic patterns. This means the healthy choices you make aren't just affecting you, there might be gifts you're giving to future generations. No pressure, but also kind of inspiring, right? Before we move on, I want to emphasize transgenerational epigenetic inheritance in humans is still being researched and debated. It's complex, and we don't fully understand all the mechanisms or how significant these effects really are compared to other factors like learned behaviors, shared environments, and traditional genetic inheritance. But the evidence we do have suggests that epigenetics adds another layer to how traits can be passed between generations, and that's remarkable. Okay, so we've covered a lot of complex science, but let's bring it home with what really matters. What can you actually do with this information? How can you use epigenetics to improve your life starting today? The Epigenetics Action Plan. 1. Optimize your diet for methylation. Eat leafy greens like spinach, kale, and Swiss chard for folate. Include cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower for sulforaphane. Add fatty fish like salmon, sardines, and mackerel for omega-3s. Drink green tea for EGCG. And consider foods rich in B vitamins like eggs, legumes, and nuts. 2. Move your body regularly. Aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. Include both cardio and strength training. Remember, even short bursts of activity create epigenetic changes. Consistency matters more than intensity. 3. Prioritize quality sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night. Maintain consistent sleep and wake times. Create a dark, cool sleeping environment. Avoid screens 1 to 2 hours before bed. 4. Manage stress actively. Practice meditation or mindfulness, even 10 minutes daily. Try yoga or Tai Chi. Spend time in nature. Maintain strong social connections. Consider therapy or counseling if needed. 5. Optimize your environment. Reduce exposure to pollution when possible. Minimize use of plastics, especially for food storage. Choose natural, non-toxic household products, and cultivate positive social environments. The big picture, you have more control than you think. Here's the empowering message of epigenetics. While you can't change the DNA sequence you inherited, you have significant influence over how those genes are expressed. Your genes aren't your destiny. They're more like a deck of cards you've been dealt. Epigenetics is how you choose to play that hand. Every meal you eat, every workout you complete, every good night's sleep you get, Every moment of stress you manage, these aren't just temporary actions. They're literally changing how your genes work. They're rewriting your biological story. Future of epigenetics. We're only scratching the surface of epigenetics. The future holds incredible possibilities. Epigenetic therapies for cancer that reactivate tumor suppressor genes. Personalized interventions based on your epigenetic profile. Better understanding of mental health through epigenetics. Treatments for age-related diseases by resetting epigenetic marks. And deeper understanding of how environment shapes development and health. Scientists are already working on drugs that target epigenetic mechanisms. Some are already approved for certain cancers. In the coming decades, epigenetic medicine could revolutionize how we prevent and treat disease. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one thing from the action plan we discussed and commit to it for the next 30 days. Just one thing. Maybe it's adding more leafy greens to your diet. Maybe it's finally starting that meditation practice. Maybe it's prioritizing sleep. Whatever it is, remember, you're not just changing a habit. You're literally changing how your genes work. You're rewriting your biological story. Drop a comment below and tell me which action you're committing to. Let's build an epigenetically optimized community together. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something today, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. We all know someone who thinks they're stuck with the genes they got. Show them they have more power than they think. Subscribe to the channel for more science that actually matters to your life. And check out the description below. I've linked several research papers and resources if you want to dive deeper into epigenetics. Remember, your story is still being written. Your genes aren't the end of the story. They're just the beginning. You have the pen.
Use it wisely. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay curious, stay healthy, and keep rewriting your genetic story.